Let me tell you something that's going to make you uncomfortable. The gap between staying broke forever and building real wealth is smaller than you think. It comes down to about $15,000. That's it, a threshold that almost nobody crosses. And here's the part that might sting a little. Your salary has absolutely nothing to do with it. Nobody in the financial industry wants to tell you this truth because it sounds too simple, and simple doesn't sell. They need you to believe that wealth is complicated, that you need their expensive advice, their complex products, their sophisticated strategies. But the reality? Wealth is arithmetic, pure mathematics. And the arithmetic shows that everything, and I mean everything, starts working differently once you cross a certain threshold. I'm Dalio. I built Bridgewater Associates into the largest hedge fund in the world, managing over $124 billion. I've advised central banks, governments, and some of the wealthiest families on the planet. I predicted the 2008 financial crisis. I navigated the dot-com slash, the debt crisis, and every major economic cycle for the last 50 years. But here's what nobody talks about, what nobody wants to remember. In 1982, I lost everything. I publicly predicted a depression that never came. I was confident, I was certain, I was the smartest guy in the room, and I was completely catastrophically wrong. The market went up, the economy boomed, and I looked like an absolute idiot. My clients left, my reputation was destroyed, and I had to borrow $4,000 from my father just to pay my bills. $4,000. Let that sink in for a moment. The guy who would eventually manage over $100 billion had to beg his dad for $4 grand to survive. But that failure, as painful and humiliating as it was, forced me to ask a question that changed everything. What separates people who build lasting wealth from people who stay broke their entire lives? So I spent the next 5 years studying this question obsessively. I analyzed thousands of wealth-building attempts. I interviewed hundreds of successful investors. I looked at the data from every possible angle, and I found one pattern that separated winners from losers. Wasn't intelligence. Plenty of smart people die broke. It wasn't connections. I've seen well-connected people squander everything. It wasn't luck, though people love to pretend it is. It was crossing one specific threshold and understanding what happens after you cross it. That threshold is $15,000. Now, if you're sitting there right now, working a modest job, bringing home an ordinary paycheck, and wondering whether financial independence is even possible for someone like you, then I want you to pay very close attention to what I'm about to share. Because difficult beginnings, that's something I understand deeply. Starting with almost nothing is familiar territory for me. Earning a modest salary, watching every dollar, feeling like the mountain is impossibly high to climb. I've been there. And here's what I learned. Most people get this completely wrong about money. The early stages of wealth building are brutally, painfully slow. You save a few $100s and it just sits there like a lump. Then you add more and the pile grows at a pace that feels almost insulting. Meanwhile, other people around you are buying things, taking vacations, posting pictures on social media of what looks like a better life. And you start wondering if you're the fool, if you're the one who's missing out, if you're sacrificing for nothing. Most people quit right here, right at this exact moment when everything feels pointless and the payoff seems impossibly far away. What escapes them, what they completely fail to understand, is that they're standing at the base of an exponential curve. The early part of that curve appears nearly flat. It looks like nothing is happening, like you're getting nowhere. But the curve isn't actually flat. It's waiting, it's building, it's gathering momentum that you can't see yet, but that will eventually become undeniable. Quitting now means never seeing what happens next. And what happens next is extraordinary. But you have to survive the flat part first. Let me show you some simple arithmetic, because the elementary mathematics of compound interest is one of the most important models on earth, and most people never take the time to truly understand it. Suppose you manage to save $400 a month. That's not easy for most people, but it's doable if you're serious. $400 a month adds up to $4,800 a year. At the end of year one, you have $4,800 plus whatever small return you earn on it. So you end up with maybe $5,000. You've sacrificed for an entire year, brown bagging your lunches while your coworkers go out to eat. skipping vacations while your friends post beach photos, driving the old car while your neighbor shows off their new one. And all you have to show for it is $5,000. This is where the weak-minded give up. They look at that 5,000 and they calculate how long it would take to become wealthy at this pace. And they do the math completely wrong because they think linearly. If saving 5,000 takes a whole year, they tell themselves then saving 100,000 will take 20 years, and by then I'll be old. So what's the point? The thinking is exactly backwards. This error, this fundamental misunderstanding of how wealth actually builds, keeps more people poor than any economic system, any unfair boss, any rigged game you want to blame. Because the first $15,000 is where everything changes. Not because 15,000 is some magic number that the universe recognizes, but because of what happens psychologically and mathematically once you cross that threshold. Psychologically, you stop feeling like a person who can't save money. Your identity actually shifts. You have proof, tangible proof, that you can do this. A cushion exists now that lets you sleep at night without that constant low-grade anxiety. Options you didn't have before suddenly appear. You're no longer one car repair away from complete disaster. You're no longer one medical bill away from bankruptcy. That psychological shift is worth more than people realize. Because once you believe you can build wealth, you start behaving like someone who builds wealth. And behavior is everything. Mathematically, your money starts working in ways you can actually see and feel. Even a modest return on $15,000 generates $1,200 a year without you lifting a finger. That's not life-changing yet. I'm not going to lie to you and say you can retire on $1,200 a year, but it's visible, it's real, and it compounds. Here's the part people dramatically underestimate, the part that changes everything. The returns on your money start approaching, then matching, then actually exceeding what you can add through savings alone. Think about this carefully. With $1,000 saved, a 10% return produces $100. That's almost meaningless in the context of your life. It's nice, but it doesn't move the needle. With $15,000 saved, that same 10% return produces $1,500. That's nearly a third of what you saved from your salary that year. Your money is starting to work. With $30,000 in savings, the return hits $3,000. Now, your money contributes as much as you contribute. You're splitting the work 50-50 with your capital. With $75,000 in savings, that 10% produces $7,500. Your money is now working harder than most people work at their jobs. With $150,000 in savings, you're generating $15,000 annually. Your money is earning more each year than the entire threshold that changed everything. This is the great secret of wealth that nobody wants you to understand. The first portion requires almost entirely your sacrifice, with you doing all the heavy lifting while your money does almost nothing. But a crossover point arrives where your money starts carrying more and more of the load, and you can ease off the gas a little. Most people never reach this crossover point because they quit during the hard part. They quit when they're doing all the work and their money is doing nothing. They look at the math and they can't imagine how this slow crawl could ever turn into real wealth. But the math doesn't lie. The math has no opinion. The math has no emotion. The curve is exponential. The early part is flat. The later part is steep. And nobody, and I mean nobody, gets to the steep part without surviving the flat part first. Now, let me talk about the mental errors that trap people in poverty, because understanding these errors is worth your time. It might be worth more than any investment advice I could give you. The first error is impatience. Great investing demands a lot of delayed gratification, and if you didn't get the delayed gratification gene, you've got to work very, very hard to overcome that weakness. Most people simply cannot sit still. They cannot wait. They see their neighbors buying boats and taking cruises and something inside them breaks. The fear of missing out becomes an obsession, so they spend their seed corn to feel better today and guarantee their poverty tomorrow. The arithmetic of patience is brutal, especially in the early years. You're saving $400 a month and watching your account grow by these tiny increments, while the world around you screams at you to spend. Advertisements hit you thousands of times a day. Your coworkers talk about their new cars. Social media shows you these carefully curated images of people living lives you can't afford. And something in the human brain interprets all of this as evidence that you're falling behind, that your sacrifice is pointless, that you should just enjoy life now, because tomorrow isn't guaranteed anyway. This is where most wealth building attempts die. Not from bad investments, not from market crashes, but from the simple inability to wait. The person who could have been wealthy at 50 is broke at 50 because they couldn't tolerate being less flashy than their neighbors at 30. Let me tell you a story that illustrates this perfectly. Mozart became the most famous composer in the world, creating music that will be played for centuries after we're all gone. And yet Mozart was utterly miserable most of his life for one simple reason. He always overspent his income, no matter how much he earned, and he died broke, completely broke. Here was a man with gifts that appear once in a century, a genius by any measure, earning substantial sums for his era, and none of it mattered because the money left faster than it came in. If Mozart, with all his talent and earning power, couldn't get away with this behavior, what makes you think you can? The uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to hear is that your income level has almost nothing to do with whether you build wealth. High earners go broke all the time because they simply scale up their spending to match or exceed whatever they bring in. A person earning $40,000 who saves $5,000 a year will end up wealthier than a person earning $200,000 who saves nothing. The arithmetic doesn't care about your job title or your tax bracket or how impressive you sound at dinner parties. The arithmetic is merciless and objective. The second error is envy, and this one is particularly insidious. The world isn't driven by greed, but by envy. I've watched envy destroy more financial plans than any market crash. You have a good plan. You're saving money. You're making real progress toward $15,000. And then you see someone else getting richer faster than you. Suddenly, your plan feels inadequate. Your progress feels too slow. So you start taking stupid risks to catch up. Spending money to prove you're not falling behind. Destroying yourself trying to match people who might be destroying themselves too. What makes envy particularly dangerous is that it attacks people who are actually succeeding. You don't need envy to destroy someone with no plan and no discipline. Those people will fail anyway. Envy reserves its worst damage for the person who was doing everything right until they looked sideways and saw someone else pulling ahead. The neighbor, with the new car, might be financing it at 18% interest. The colleague who just bought the bigger house might be one layoff away from foreclosure. The friend who seems to be getting rich quick might be about to lose everything in some scheme that sounds too good to be true, because it is too good to be true. You don't know their real situation. You only see the surface. But envy doesn't care about reality. Envy only sees the surface. And the surface is designed to deceive. Here's a truth you need to accept. Someone will always be getting richer faster than you. Always. And this is not a tragedy. The tragedy is letting that fact derail your own progress toward $15,000. Envy stands out as a really stupid sin because it's the only one where you could never possibly have any fun. Think about it. With gluttony, at least you get to enjoy the meal. With greed, at least you get the money. But envy just leaves you sitting there feeling miserable about someone else's success, getting absolutely nothing out of it except misery. I conquered envy in my own life many years ago. Nobody gets my envy anymore. I don't give a damn what somebody else has. And this mental shift alone is worth millions of dollars over a lifetime. When you stop measuring yourself against others and start measuring yourself against your own plan, your own goals, your own timeline, the psychological pressure evaporates. You can breathe, you can focus, you can execute. The third error is self-pity. And this one gets pretty close to paranoia, which is one of the very hardest things to reverse once it takes hold. Drifting into self-pity is something you absolutely do not want. Every time you find yourself drifting into self-pity, regardless of the cause, regardless of how justified it seems, stop it immediately. Your situation might be difficult. Your starting point might be lower than others. Your obstacles might be real. Self-pity still won't help. It will only paralyze you and make you weaker. Now, let me introduce you to a mental tool that's incredibly powerful for getting rich, and almost nobody uses it. It's called inversion. Most people think about success by asking what they need to do to get rich. But that's the wrong question. The right question The question that actually leads to clarity is this: what would guarantee staying poor forever? And how can those things be avoided? There's an old saying that captures this perfectly. All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. When you invert the problem, when you look at it backwards, the answers become obvious. What guarantees financial failure? Let's list them out. Spending more than you earn is guaranteed failure. There's no way around this. Not saving anything is guaranteed failure. You cannot build wealth if you save zero. Taking on high-interest debt is guaranteed failure. You're working for the credit card company, not for yourself. Being unreliable guarantees that nobody will want to work with you or promote you or trust you with opportunities. Feeling sorry for yourself makes you passive when you need to be active. Acting on envy makes you take stupid risks. Once you've identified all the behaviors that guarantee failure, the strategy becomes simple. Don't do those things. Remarkable long-term advantage comes from trying to be consistently not stupid instead of trying to be very intelligent. They're looking for the brilliant insight, the clever trade, the secret strategy. All I'm trying to do is not be idiotic. But that's harder than most people think. There's a principle here that seems obvious but gets almost universally ignored. It deserves your attention. Spend less than you make. Always be saving something. Over time, it will begin to amount to something. This is such a no-brainer. The simplicity is almost striking. Spend less than you earn. Invest shrewdly. Avoid toxic people and toxic activities. Keep learning all your life. Do a lot of deferred gratification. Doing all those things makes reaching $15,000 almost certain. Not doing them means you're going to need a lot of luck, and luck is not a strategy. Now let me tell you what happened after I borrowed that $4,000 from my father in 1982. I didn't just need to rebuild my fund. I needed to rebuild my entire approach to markets, to risk, to reality. So I went back to basics. I studied my mistakes with brutal honesty. I wrote down every principle I had violated. And I created a system, a set of rules, that would prevent me from making those mistakes again. Within 2 years, I had paid back my father. Within 5 years, Bridgewater had $5 million under management. Today we manage $124 billion. But here's what most people don't understand about that growth, about that journey from broke to managing more money than most people can even conceptualize. It didn't happen because I got smarter. It happened because I built a system and I stuck to it. The same principle applies to personal wealth. Getting to $15,000 requires a system, not motivation, not willpower. A system. You automate your savings the day you get paid. You track every dollar like a forensic accountant. You increase your income through side work if necessary. You cut wasteful spending without feeling deprived. And you do this every single month, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what's happening in the world, regardless of what your friends are doing. The system runs, the system produces, the system wins. Now, something about leverage needs to be understood, because this is where smart people destroy themselves right before crossing $15,000. I've seen it happen over and over again. There are 3 ways for smart people to go broke: liquor, ladies, and leverage. And leverage is the worst of the 3. The pattern repeats like clockwork. A person accumulates some wealth, maybe $8,000 or $10,000. They're making progress. They're doing well. And then they get impatient. They start thinking about how they could accelerate things if they just borrowed some money to invest. Borrowing money to invest follows. Then something goes wrong. The market drops. Not even by that much, just enough. And suddenly leverage is magnifying losses instead of gains. Everything is lost, not just the gains, everything. At Bridgewater, we've always been extremely careful about excessive leverage. And that's not cowardice. That's arithmetic. Getting rich only needs to happen once, not 4 times. The beauty of building wealth the slow way, the patient way, is that you only have to do it once. Getting to $15,000 without leverage means nobody can take it away from you. It's yours. It's real. It's permanent. Now, earning power deserves discussion because saving money is only half the equation. The other half is making more money in the first place. The safest way to get what you want is to try to deserve what you want. It's so simple, it sounds stupid, but it's true. Earning more requires becoming more valuable, developing skills that people will actually pay for, becoming reliable, knowledgeable, and capable. And the learning must continue forever. People constantly rise in life who are not the smartest, they're not the most talented, but they're learning machines. They go to bed every night a little wiser than they were when they got up. Over the long run, over years and decades, that makes all the difference in the world. Wisdom acquisition is a moral duty. Lifetime learning is absolutely mandatory. Without it, you're not going to do very well. No wise people exist who didn't read all the time. None. Zero. You show me a wise person, and I'll show you someone who reads constantly. If you're sitting there with a small salary thinking you're stuck, thinking this is just how it is, understand this clearly. Your salary today is not your salary forever, but it will be your salary forever if you stop learning. Continuing to learn increases your earning power. As your earning power increases, your ability to save increases, and as your savings increase, compounding takes over. The cycle accelerates. Let me tell you about a partnership I entered in my early years that taught me something important about capital. A friend and I each contributed $15,000 to a real estate deal. That was every dollar I had saved at the time, every single dollar. We bought a small apartment building, renovated it, raised the rents, improved the property, and 3 years later we sold it. That $15,000 turned into $47,000. My first real taste of what capital can do when it's deployed intelligently. But here's the key insight that matters for you. I couldn't have done that deal with $5,000. The opportunity required $15,000 minimum to participate. Being below that threshold meant I would have watched that opportunity pass me by. Crossing the threshold meant I could participate. The point isn't that you should go do exactly what I did. The point is that once you have $15,000 in capital, opportunities appear that are completely invisible to people without capital. Capital attracts opportunity, and opportunity generates more capital. The rich get richer not because the system is unfair, but because having money allows you to make more money. Your job is to get enough capital to enter that virtuous cycle, and $15,000 is where that cycle begins. Patience is where most people fail, and I want to be very clear about this. The big money is not in the buying or the selling, but in the waiting. Most people cannot wait because they want to feel active. They want to feel like they're doing something, so they buy and sell constantly. And every time they do that, they're paying fees, paying taxes on short-term gains, interrupting the compounding process that would have made them wealthy if they had just sat still and done nothing. The first rule of compounding is never interrupted unnecessarily. Every time you sell an investment that's working, you pay taxes. Every time you pay taxes, you have less capital compounding. Simple arithmetic governs all of this, but people keep getting it wrong because they cannot sit still. They cannot be patient. They cannot tolerate the discomfort of watching and waiting. Now, here's something critical. You need to understand about where we are right now in 2026. We're at the end of a 75-year debt cycle. I've studied these cycles for 50 years. I've seen what happens when they end, and they don't end quietly. Total debt in the economy is over $90 trillion. Government debt alone is $35 trillion. When you reach the point where interest payments exceed defense spending, you're at the end stage of something. When debt cycles end, three things happen: defaults, restructuring, or inflation every time. Throughout 500 years of recorded financial history, these are the only three outcomes. And in every case, every single case without exception, the people with capital survive and prosper. The people without capital get destroyed. Getting to $15,000 before the crisis hits means you're a buyer when everyone else is forced to sell. You can pick up assets at fire sale prices. You can wait out the storm. You can take advantage of the chaos instead of being a victim of it. This is not optional anymore. This is survival. The window is closing. We're 12 to 24 months away from the next major deleveraging, and if you don't have $15,000 by then, you're going to be one of the casualties. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to wake you up. The point of getting rich is not accumulating possessions. That's what people think wealth is about, but they're wrong. The point is freedom. It's about being able to make your own choices without asking anyone's permission. Being broke means taking whatever job you can get, accepting whatever terms they offer, living where you can afford, doing what you must instead of what you want. Having $15,000 changes everything. It changes your entire relationship with the world. Saying no becomes possible. Waiting for the right opportunity becomes an option. Walking away from a bad situation becomes viable. This is what changes after $15,000. Your whole relationship with life starts to shift. You're not desperate anymore. You have options, and options are worth more than money. Now, what not to do with growing wealth matters enormously, because many people go wrong right at the moment of success. Don't start living large the moment you cross $15,000. That's the amateur move. The people who build lasting wealth keep their expenses flat even as their savings grow. Every dollar you don't spend is a dollar that compounds. Every dollar you waste is a dollar that can't work for you. Don't listen to people selling complex financial products. The financial industry makes money from complexity while you make money from simplicity. The more complicated something is, the more likely it is that someone is trying to extract fees from you. Don't check your investments every day. The more often you look, the more likely you are to do something stupid. Daily volatility is noise. Long-term trends are signal. Focus on signal. Don't try to time the market. Just find good investments and hold them. The people who make the most money in markets are the people who can sit on their hands and do nothing. If you want to carry one message from everything I've told you today, here it is. Spend less than you earn. Work hard. Keep learning. Be reliable. Be patient. Avoid debt. Avoid envy. Avoid self-pity. Stay within your circle of competence. Don't do stupid things. None of this is complicated, but all of it is difficult. The difficulty lies not in understanding what to do. Any reasonably intelligent person can understand these principles. The difficulty is in actually doing it day after day, month after month, year after year. When the progress is slow and the temptations are constant and everyone around you seems to be living better than you are, that's when character matters. That's when discipline separates winners from losers. The first 15,000 will be hard, brutally hard. You'll wonder if it's worth it. You'll be tempted to spend it. You'll watch other people who seem to be living larger, more exciting lives. Ignore all of that noise and stay the course. Because once you cross $15,000, something fundamental starts to shift in your life. Proof that you can do this exists. It's sitting there in your account. Undeniable. Your money starts earning enough that you can actually see it and feel it. The psychology of scarcity begins to lift. Then comes the push toward 30,000, and your money contributes meaningfully. Then the push toward 75,000, and your money works almost as hard as you do. And beyond that, the curve steepens dramatically. The growth accelerates. The compounding takes over. Financial freedom waits on the other side of that curve. Real freedom. The kind where you make decisions based on what you want to do, not what you can afford to do. But none of it happens without surviving the flat part of the curve. None of it happens without crossing that first $15,000 threshold. Understanding both the power of compound interest and the difficulty of getting it working for you, that's the heart and soul of understanding wealth. It's simple arithmetic complicated by human psychology. The numbers work, the math is certain, the only variable is you. Now you understand the game. The rules are clear, the path is visible, and the question is what you're going to do about it. If there's anything you really want to accomplish in building wealth, don't wait. Time is the essential ingredient in compounding, and every year you delay is a year of growth you'll never get back. You can't recover lost time. You can only start from where you are today. So start now. Save something today, even if it's small, even if it feels insignificant. Start the process. Avoid stupidity. Keep learning. Be patient. Be disciplined. Be consistent. The choice is yours. And it's a choice you make every single day. Follow the principles or follow the crowd. Build real wealth or just look wealthy. Create financial freedom or stay trapped in financial dependence. I know which one works. I've seen it work for 50 years. I've watched thousands of people succeed by following these principles, and I've watched tens of thousands of people fail by ignoring them. You know it too now. The information is in your hands. What you do with it is up to you. But remember this, $15,000 is not just a number. It's a threshold. It's a gateway. It's the point where everything starts to work differently. Cross it, and your life will never be the same.